welcome back
to the Wig Room.
Great to be here again. Erica, how was your week?
Last week I was Betty Boop. That was fun. On a show called On Cinema.
Mm-hmm.
I did a deep dive into Betty. I studied her all week.
That was the first time you'd ever done her. Mm-hmm. And if you don't know who Betty Boop is, she was an iconic cartoon character from the 20s.
Who doesn't know Betty Boop?
I think a lot of people don't know who Betty Boop is.
Betty Boop started as a cartoon in the year 1930, and they used to put these cartoons, like 5 to 7 minute cartoons, before films in the theater.
Okay.
As like preview, like what we do now as previews.
When I first bought the business in 2003 or 4, I would get called for Betty Boop.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely, because the classic Hollywood characters were called for way more often than they are today. We still get called for them, but not as much. So it was Ginger Pauly did it, and she did a great job, and she also sang it. And she also worked with a band.
Oh, wow.
And would be Betty Boop with a band.
A live band.
Mm-hmm. Because she had a band, so she was already doing that, so she would incorporate the character into it.
There's a Betty Boop movie coming out, a Betty Boop horror movie coming out in a few months, and so maybe people will want to see Betty Boop some more.
Is she the protagonist or the antagonist?
Both. She kills sorority kids. She kills. Betty Boop would never kill people. I don't know. Maybe this is great.
It makes no sense. Is this a Hollywood film or an indie?
It's a Hollywood film.
Do we know who's playing Betty?
Yes, but I forget her name. But she looks like Betty.
So. Nice.
And they just did a Betty Boop musical.
Yes, it's on Broadway. Yeah. So today we are going to be talking about the celebrity impersonation world and the history of, which we talked about briefly the last time. And so we're going to reiterate a few things. I had talked to Erica about how I purchased the business from Brian Mulligan, and it was called Mulligan Management. And at that time, he was the first owner of Celebrity Impersonator business on the West Coast since 1987. Okay, and we talked a little bit about the difference of what it was then and what it is today. For instance, it was just highly sought after. The novelty was fresh and new. So folks like Cher or the Rat Pack, Elvis Presley, were highly sought after, and they would take very good care of them, like when you were taken care of as Marilyn Monroe. And they flew them all over the world, and they flew them business and first class, put them up in 5-star hotels. I mean, we're lucky to get a 2.5-star these days.
We book our own travel.
Yeah, we book our own travel, and it's certainly not business class unless we've got miles.
But they really didn't have impersonators before the 80s. Like, didn't they have Elvis impersonators?
Well, Elvis has always been, I'd like to actually look back to see when Legends in concert, which is in Las Vegas, first started, because that would tell us, because Legends is the first. But I don't think it's, I think it's the 80s, So,
but there were like vaudeville performers that would be impressionists, and they would do voices and stuff.
True.
But they wouldn't do the look.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point, because impressionists are very different. And some people are actual impersonators and impressionists. Like, they have the voice, the look, and the whole thing. I also wanted to talk about the difference between impersonation, lookalikes, and tribute artists. So some say, well, what are you talking about? Well, we're referred to as lookalikes a lot. And then you might get some shit about it, because it's like, okay, I don't think that person really looks that much like that character.
And also, if they do look a lot like the character, the person might not necessarily be an actor or a performer. They might just be a regular person that happens to look a lot like who the celebrity
and
that
decided to take advantage of that. I have for instance, Lyndall. Lyndall was the #1 Arnold Schwarzenegger. He was an architect and a contractor, and he lived on Northern California. And I guess enough people said to him, you look a lot like Arnold. And so he took it on. He was also, built like him, maybe a little shorter. And he learned the character, learned the voice, And he would do presentations as him. Like, it took him a while to get there, but
What kind of presentation?
oh, you know, when somebody asks you to MC something or introduce the president because they're doing an award to the CEO, and who better than at the time the governor to come out and do it? Who's not really the governor? It's you know, Lyndall. And there's been a couple of others that I've worked with like that have been.
David Siegel, who does George Clooney.
Okay, David Siegel's one. There was a woman down in Maryland who did, oh goodness, was married to Brad Pitt.
Angelina Jolie.
Angelina Jolie. And she, I don't know what she did beforehand, but she ended up being like the top Jolie and traveled everywhere. And it was night and day from the first time she did it until, you know, more recent times, because she has learned so much. Anyway, I've gone off track. Where are we?
We were talking about lookalikes, the difference between lookalikes, impersonators, and
Tribute artists.
So we talked about lookalikes. So what's now the difference between a lookalike and an impersonator?
Impersonation, I think, is somebody who may not look quite as much like, but understands the character, can perform live as a singer as them, which also bleeds into the tribute artist. But impersonator, you have to have that character down. Like, I'm a Joan Rivers impersonator, I think. I look like her too,
Yeah.
but that's taken a while. I haven't always looked as good as I do now as her, but I've learned that character. That was an easy one for me for whatever reason.
When you say you look more like her now, do you mean because you've perfected the makeup look and the wig and the...
Absolutely. I've spent some money and time, you know, and you know, we're just poor actors to start with. And so, you know, who wants to throw down $500 on a costume and a wig? Some do. I know some people who won't do anything, won't go out of the house without it being, you know, a costume designed outfit. I always say layers. Layers. You can't just wear the one costume if it's a costume in a bag. But it takes more time than that. Some people, like Holly Bevan, when she does Marilyn or any of her characters, she does the exact wig that goes with the exact era of that character, costume, dress, and she makes them herself, and that's her, and so I, you know, appreciate that. I mean, we learn as we go what's right for us.
Well, I mean, when I first started doing Marilyn, I had, for example, the white dress, which I got at a Halloween store, but then I had it tailored, and they put a zipper in there so that it fit me better. But now, like years into it, I get them custom made, like exact replicas of her costumes.
Well, you've made money in this industry over the years, and you're also at a different level now, so it's expected.
And the wigs, I mean, when I first started, I just got a Marilyn wig from the Halloween store, and now it's like a whole thing. Like, you've got to get them designed.
I have to say, when we first met, remember I said to you, I said, you're so pretty, you look great as Marilyn, but let's talk about that wig. And then I sent you some other wig options, and you ended up doing that. So let's go to what I consider a tribute artist. So, and this hit me from a friend of mine, Pete Peterkin, who does Obama, who does Little Richard, who does Ray Charles. He does all of them, and he's very, very well known in Las Vegas. He's a wonderful, wonderful performer in person. And he corrected me not so terribly long ago. He said, we like to be considered tribute artists.
Okay, so what's the difference between a tribute artist and an impersonator?
I think a tribute artist, and I'm putting that now in every contract, because for me, a tribute artist means we are paying tribute to a character. So we are not saying that it's a direct lookalike. We are not saying that it's an impersonator, which can be misconstrued and misunderstood. But the tribute artist, to me, is Tom Cruise is doing a tribute to. We are doing a tribute to Top Gun with Tom Cruise, Goose, Iceman. You're doing a tribute to, this evening, Britney Spears.
Britney, I got my Britney makeup on.
You know, I think you look close enough to Britney that you could be considered a Britney lookalike. You know, but I think tribute artist takes it to a different level of professional.
So a tribute artist isn't expected to look exactly like the character, and they're not expected to sound exactly like the character?
A tribute artist, look, at the end of the day, when I ask how the event went, I need for them to say it was fantastic, because that person brought such an amazing performance and life to the character they hired.
So it's like they're celebrating the character, and the people get to celebrate the character.
I think the person who considers himself a tribute artist is that person who's done the research, done the work to step into that room as that person confidently.
And also, like, they probably have some ownership over the act. So they're not just like an actor or a singer or a dancer that you hire and you give them the costume and you give them the wig and you throw them on stage. They're somebody who has taken it upon themselves to do the research and track
and put
down.
together a show. Like you will put together a show of a compilation of songs with dances, costume changes, how we're welcoming the guests. I mean, it's when we get there, they're expecting us to take the lead. And now we're going to talk about who were the players and where are they now. This is important to me because I've been around a while, and so have you. So you want to go first?
Well, sure. On the East Coast, there was Elaine Shea. Elaine Shea is still performing. Elaine started off as a dancer, and I believe she was at like Studio 54 in the Limelight, and she started doing Marilyn Monroe in the 80s.
Okay.
And she's so beautiful and so glamorous, and she doesn't even have to wear a wig. She has the blonde hair, and she looked just like Marilyn. She started doing Marilyn there on the East Coast, and she was very successful and continues to be. She got so deep into the Marilyn role that she got the opportunity to meet this woman, Lena Pepitone, who was Marilyn Monroe's maid. In fact, she says that Lena was the one that sewed Marilyn into the Happy Birthday gown.
Oh, wow.
That she sang Happy Birthday for JFK. And so she made friends with Lena. And Lena has since passed away, but she was living around Midtown, Upper East Side in an apartment that Marilyn had purchased for her. And so when I first started doing Marilyn, I reached out to Elaine because she runs an impersonator agency. And so she started booking me as Marilyn, and she also took me under her wing a little bit and taught me how to speak as Marilyn, how to be like heard in a big, in a big room or on stage, even with your little whispery voice.
Right, and that's tough.
Yeah. And she also... I got some costumes from her. She gave me some of her costumes.
Wow.
And she introduced me to Lena. So I got to meet her. But so I would say Elaine.
Okay, Elaine Shea.
On the East Coast.
And I know that name. So I'd say on the West Coast, for me, obviously Brian Mulligan, who was the owner, he was doing Charlie Chaplin. So he was well known as that character, which I then took his costume when I purchased the business. And I've been wearing that same costume ever since.
Oh, wow.
I think I've changed out the vest, maybe. Or just maybe sewed it and added a button.
Very good care of it.
I don't know, but it was such a great costume, and people always love it. Anyway, so Brian Mulligan for one, and I think I talked the last episode about how I met Brian, which was through Alyssa Negrin, who was the top Cher impersonator out here, who has since passed. And when I talk about where are they now, it's sad because many of them are gone. Michael Sherman is gone. He did, he did Bogart. He did several of the characters that I used to book him as. Todd, who played Mick Jagger, is gone. Anyway, I'm not going to harp on that, but we're all just passing through, and it happens. But they were the people who laid the groundwork. What do we think about the newcomers? There were times a decade ago when I was in the room with some of the old school and some new school, and they were not very nice.
The old school was not nice to the new school?
And I'm not going to name names, but there was judgment and there was unkindness, and I did not like it.
So I was playing Britney, and Kevin booked a Justin Timberlake who looked exactly like him. But he was very young and he didn't really know anything about Justin Timberlake. He's also a singer in his own right and a songwriter. But he just was more, I would say, in the lookalike category because being a newcomer, he didn't understand certain things about the business. He didn't understand that you don't really break character and sing one of your own songs. You don't.
Did he do that?
He tried, but they wouldn't let him.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the attitude of, like, why would you get upset with somebody just because they don't know better? It's more like, you just kind of show them the way to do it.
Right. And that because you're a different person.
Mm-hmm.
You're a kind person. That's an interesting story. He was a great kid.
He's still alive.
Oh yeah, he's still alive. Here's what I'll say about that. People don't understand the value. Actors, singers that have come here, dancers that have come here, didn't come here for that. And there aren't a lot of new characters that they can relate to that have longevity. Meaning, look at Cher, look at Michael Jackson, look at Tina Turner. They had decades, different costumes, different iterations of music.
Mm-hmm.
And so as a performer, you can take all that on.
Mm-hmm.
So for instance, I brought this young woman on to do Rihanna and booked her to sing 2 songs. She knew every Rihanna song. She's like, I'll do whatever. Put it together, showed up, looked fantastic, performed well, did a great job. I said, I think you could also do Tina Turner because there wasn't a local Tina, or I needed a local and there wasn't anybody available. And it just seemed like trying to get her costume, get her interested enough.
You mean because she didn't feel a connection to Tina, so she didn't understand that other people would appreciate it?
Maybe, or just, I think people smoke a lot of pot.
What do you mean?
I don't think people have the energy
to put together a new character.
To just
even when you're like,
to do anything.
I'll give you $800.
Right, to do anything. So I just got to the point, and I'm not going to go into too much detail about this performer, but there were a couple of other incidents where I felt the same thing, where there was a lack of interest or a lack of energy.
I've asked, like, sometimes clients will ask, like, oh, we need a Marlon Brando, or we need something, and there aren't any actors that do that. And I asked a friend of mine, if he'd do him because he resembles him, and he's like, I can't do that. Like, I can't do live interactive, talking to people. I don't know how you do that, and I can't. But I'm like, but don't you want $600? Like, you're driving Uber all day for $200. You can show up for 1 hour and do this. What's the big deal?
And this is just one time. Marlon used to be called for quite a bit, mostly from the movie, which is what's the movie?
The Godfather.
The Godfather. It takes that theatrical actor who loves doing character work, which is more East Coast. So that's the difference between then and now. Did we cover that?
Well, actually, I was thinking when you said that the OG impersonators and stuff. So what else do you think is behind what you experience as their attitude toward the newcomers? And this is not all OG, just like on occasion.
And I have to be honest, it's I hear it more from the women than ever the men.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think men are thinking that way.
Do you think it's the threat of being replaced, or do you think it's the love they have for the craft and they see it not being respected, or a combination?
I think you hit it right on the nose with both of those.
Mm-hmm.
It's absolutely both of those, especially with a character like Marilyn Monroe.
Mm-hmm.
I've been down the road with several Marilyns, and I think people are upset with me that I'm not booking them as much as Marilyn as I used to. But, for me, I have to give a client options.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I have my favorites for different things. There are some that can meet and greet better than others. There are some who I feel look more like the character than others, or perform more like the character than others. But it's not up to me, right? And also, people have a different idea of what Marilyn looked like.
Different people have a different idea?
Yes.
Or this generation has a different idea?
Clients of all generations.
Yeah, I've gotten that too. Sometimes I have in the past shown up as Marilyn, and the client will comment like that I'm not voluptuous enough. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? Like, Marilyn was slender. Like, I wouldn't even fit in her clothes. You know, I don't know what image they have.
It's the latter Marilyn that
Yeah.
people are identifying, just like they might identify with the later Elvis. You know, and so that's why there are so many people doing Elvis, because there was a whole decade of him heavier, and then 2 decades of him not.
Right.
You know, there
right.
was 3 different kind of looks for Elvis, and people take them on. I mean, some people are still doing Elvis from the 60s, and they're pushing 60 and 70.
I've seen that.
And I don't think that that's a good idea.
They would be more in a, like, tribute artist category, maybe.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I made the mistake. I was on the phone with an Elvis planning a gig, and I'd never met him in person yet, and he just was a chatterbox, and so we just kind of kept chatting, and I made the mistake of saying that, like, oh, I saw this Elvis at the casino. He must have been in his 60s, and blah, blah, blah. And then he was silent on the other end, and I was like, uh-oh, he's probably...
And Elvis in his 60s.
Yeah.
Look, we're all aging, and I feel as long as I still can look in the mirror and feel like I look like the character enough, then I'll do it.
I feel so silly because when I do Britney and, like, somebody wants Hit Me Baby One More Time, Britney was 16.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, okay, I'm not going to say.
And that's where using tribute artists can help. That's why I use it always now, because it kind of takes you off the hook of trying to be something that you can't be. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So our next episode is going to be Characters Welcome, it's called. And Erica here is going to give us a little treat because she's got a big show coming up, and she's going to get into that character for us. So it's Impersonator Deep Dives #1, right? We'll do several of those.
Well, thank you for joining us today on the Wig Room.
That's right. We are so happy to be here, and we will see you next time.